Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to have a look at another collaboration beer today. The home brewery in this case have featured on the channel a couple of times before, 4 times if I'm remembering correctly, and the guest brewery were mentioned in the Malmö Beer Week beer that I reviewed for you maybe about 2 months or so ago now. So curious to see what these guys can do when they put their heads together. For the home brewery then, we are going to head to Karlshamn, which is in the western part of Blekinge county here in the south of Sweden, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Brygghus. So this one is the Siv. It's a New England IPA coming in at 6% ABV, and this is brewed in collaboration with Secret Sisters Brewing, who come from Malmö. And as I say, this is the first time they're getting a slightly longer section on one of my beer reviews here on the channel. So hopefully this turns out to be another nice beer. This one was released as part of the Lokal och Småskalig assortment on the 1st of June 2020 through Systembolaget here in Sweden. So very curious to see how this one turns out. The last beer that I had from Brygghus was the International Haze, which is an awesome beer. They seem to release that periodically, and this is the first time, as I say, that I'm trying a kind of Secret Sisters Brewing beer as well. But hopefully I can get a few more from those guys at some point in the fairly near future. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brygghus before, and my future reviews that hopefully I can do from Secret Sisters Brewing. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers properly for you on the channel, as I said. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about the breweries then, and we'll kick off with Brygghus since they are the home brewery in this case. So Brygghus, as I've told you already, are based in Karlshamn in Blekinge, basically in the western part of the county in southern Sweden, and apparently these guys were the first microbrewery to open up in the county. So the brewery was founded back in 2012 by Dan Magnus Svensson, Magnus Karlsson and Mikael Lundell. These 3 guys had worked together in the same company, and they entered a home brewing competition. After they won it, this really inspired them to go and set up their own microbrewery. So apparently Karlshamn has one of the deepest ports in Sweden, and it also has quite a long tradition of brewing as well. The old brewery that was there was built in 1883, and then the building was demolished about 100 years later in 1982. But the brewery is in an old dairy mill very close to the harbour, and the larger kit at the brewery has a 2,000 litre per brew capacity, and they also have a smaller kit in there as well for pilot brews with which they test the new recipes. Over the course of 2019 though, they started issuing shares, and this allowed them to invest heavily in the brewery. They brought in Ida Iverson as their new brewer, and they've been investing in a lot of new equipment as well, and they went on to brew around 100,000 litres of beer over that year, and they also purchased a new distillery as well to expand their distilling operations. In 2020 they're planning to expand the brewery further. Whether that remains the case because of the whole COVID-19 situation, I'm not quite sure, but as of June 2020, when I'm making this review for you, they've produced around 60 different kinds of beer, and they have been, making a bigger presence for themselves actually. As you can see, they've started canning their beers, I think, as of last year, and I think they've been just adding more and more beers to their repertoire. Of course, the very first beer that I tried from these guys was called the My Balalaika, which was an Imperial Stout, which was very nice, and I think that was reviewed either late 2015 or early 2016, if I remember correctly. So yeah, an interesting brewery, this one. And one that I really would recommend that you check out. The International Haze is probably the best known beer from these guys, but I need to have a look at some of the other stuff that they're doing and see what I can get a hold of from them. I need to try some of their other beers that they've released recently as well, because as I say, I was impressed with the International Haze. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Brygghus for the moment. Quite cool that these guys were the first brewery in the whole of, or the first microbrewery I should say, in the whole of Blekinge County, which incidentally is a very, very pretty part of Sweden. To drive along the coast there is very, very nice, and I would recommend that you do that. We went through there on the way to Kalmar and Öland, which was very, very nice. So yeah, check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and if you want to see all the different beers that they've done, you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all 60 different varieties. So yeah, that is Brygghus Niton. On to Secret Sisters Brewing Company then, back to my home county of Skåne here. So Secret Sisters Brewing, as I mentioned earlier, are based in Malmö, and they were founded back in April of 2018. So Irina Karlshamn, Erika Norén, Natalie Eriksson and Paulina Nordling are the 4 women behind the brewery. So Irina and Natalie were both home brewers, and Irina learned to home brew here in Skåne, while Natalie learned when she was studying over in Chicago. She is a musician, if I remember correctly. But Erika has a background in the lab, while Paulina is also a graphic designer, so there's a lot of expertise here in this little company. But these guys were part of the microbrewery collective -1 at the Bishop's Arms in Gustav Adolfs Torg, and there's so many breweries have kind of kicked off their whole brewing operations there as well. I do need to see if I can get down the stairs and have a look at that at some point. I don't go in there all that often, in fairness, but it seems to be a very, very cool little setup, and there's a number of, you know, really, really small microbreweries who have emerged out of there. I guess probably the 2 most prominent ones at the moment would be both Secret Sisters and Elm 11, and you've seen me review one of the Elm 11 beers very recently as well. But they've also brewed beers in some other places as well. I saw that they brewed some beers in Denmark, and of course they've brewed over at Brygghus Niton. And the brewery is still a part-time venture. I don't know whether they have plans to make it a full-time venture, but as of June 2020, according to Untappd, these guys have produced 30 different beers under their own name. So yeah, pretty impressive, this one. Actually, it'd be cool to do a wee interview with the girls actually and see about and see how they're doing. It'd be it's always quite interesting to do reviews or to do interviews with the breweries when they're in the very kind of early stages, like these guys and Elm 11 are, and hopefully we see them get, you know, their own premises and things at some point in the future. That would be very, very cool. It's nice to see that more and more breweries are popping up here in Malmö actually, so, or well, in Skåne I should say, because Malmö, I think there's been breweries all throughout Skåne, and you can really see the beer scene strengthening down here, which is great. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Secret Sisters Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about them, of course you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer page and the Untappd page as well to learn more about all the different beers that they've done. I don't think these guys are on Beer Advocate yet actually, but might be worth checking out. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Secret Sisters Brewing for the moment. Check out those links, and we are going to have a taste of this beer now. So yeah, let's get on to the tasting. As I told you earlier, this one was released as part of the Local Småskaligt assortment for June 2020. in Systembolaget, and it tells you on the side here, this is their tribute to Siv. So Siv is a goddess of fertility of the earth in Norse mythology, and her long hair is believed to represent the fields of golden wheat. So this one is a New England IPA double dry hopped with the Pink Boots blend of hops. And what I should say about the Pink Boots organisation, they're actually really interesting, because what they do is they give scholarships to women who want to study brewing and all this sort of thing. The whole idea of the organisation is to promote women in the brewing industry, of course. And you know, there have been a good number of female brewers in Sweden recently. Of course, you've got these guys now, the Secret Sisters Brewing Company, which is all female. You've got who else do you have? You've got Jessica Heidrich, who was at the name of the brewery is going to St. Eric's Brewery for a long time, and she's got her own brewery now. And of course you've got now Brygghus Niton have a female brewer as well. And I remember there was the Brazilian woman who was at Brewski and now brews for Amar. I forget her first name actually, but yeah, I met her once and she was really nice actually. But yeah, so yeah, definitely Pink Boots organisation are really cool. So I don't know whether this one is like an official Pink Boots beer. I guess it probably isn't. I think it's just using one of the hop blends that they've done. But yeah, they basically promote women in the brewing industry, which is always a very good thing, because obviously it is a very heavily male dominated industry. But yeah, nice artwork there. There you can see the heads of the 4 girls and some of the guys from Brygghus Niton as well actually. So yeah, the 4 girls in the middle here, I think these are the These are the Secret Sisters girls. These are the two guys from Brygghus, and this is Ida. I think this one is Ida from Brygghus actually. So yeah, pretty cool. And of course, you have to have the dog in there as well, which is pretty awesome. But there on the back, you can see the Brygghus symbol, which also has the Secret Sisters thing. And I have to say, the artwork is pretty cool. Incidentally, this one is a 473 milliliter can, which is a 1 American pint can. Yeah, I don't wonder why they've done that instead of the. I wonder why they did that instead of the 440 milliliter. But yeah, 6% New England IPA, this one, and a tribute to the Nordic god of soil fertility. So yeah, pretty cool. Let's get this guy out then, and we will get on with the tasting. I'm very curious to see how this beer turns out. So yeah, and definitely cool to have my first kind of proper review, if you like, of a Secret Sisters beer. Oh, now. We'll need to check that a little bit later, because that beer looks suspiciously like a West Coast IPA in the thing. Surely New England should be a little bit more hazy than that, but yeah, we'll let them away with that for just now. We'll have a look at the aroma and see how we got on, and we'll have a taste of it as it is. But yeah, that's remarkably unhazy for a New England IPA, and of course that's in stark contrast to the last one that we had from Brygghus, which was basically, you know, barley soup, or oat soup, barley and oat soup basically. But yeah, this one it does look nice actually. You can see it's got a lovely kind of light ambery colour to it, this one, leaning a bit more towards the kind of yellowy side of things actually as well, so like a very kind of strong, yeah, it's sort of strong golden yellow colour, maybe light amber I would say. There was a solid kind of half finger of a kind of bumpy white head on this one. I'd say it's maybe got a creamy tinge to it. In fairness, it's not perfect white. One or two big bubbles are sticking towards the side of the glass. You've got a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, and the head incidentally is just fading away to be a very kind of thin foamy layer unless we kind of irritate it a little bit. But yeah, really nice looking beer, this one, I have to say. So yeah, the aroma of that I'm sure will be quite interesting. I've got a few whiffs of it as we brought it out of the can. But as I say, the surprising thing about this one is the fact that it's supposed to be a New England IPA, but it's not hazy. So we'll need to see what the deal with that is. Maybe there's some sediment at the bottom of the can, but I only had it in the fridge for maybe about 2 days actually, so I'm not sure about that. But yeah, let's have a look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. Right, so straight away with this one, it actually does it. I'm just checking to see. No, it does say New England IPA. It says NEIPA, as the Swedes might say on the back. But yeah, straight away with this one, you can smell a little bit of a kind of white bready quality to it. There is a wee bit of oatiness to it, in fairness, but it does strike me as being more like a kind of bready type malt base. You don't get so much in the way of the kind of oaty creaminess out of it. There's a bit of a biscuity malt in there as well, like a kind of McVitie's digestive sort of thing. I don't really get any wheatiness out of this one, I have to say. I think it's more white bread, a little bit of biscuit, wee touch of oats, but not too much. I think this one, to be honest with you, the malt base in this one really is, it's bready, it's biscuity, and it's very kind of straight up like that actually, which is kind of interesting. I wouldn't have expected that. I really would not have expected that from a New England. There's just something about this beer so far that's making me think more a sort of West Coast. But yeah, we'll see. So yeah, malt base again. I said the appearance isn't what you'd expect for a New England. The malty side of the aroma isn't what you'd expect for a New England. There's a little bit of an earthiness to this one, I would say as well. Not too strong right enough. It's a little bit of a lighter earthiness. You get some nice floral aromaticity out of the beer, but I would say that the green side of the hops really leans towards that light earthiness and a more kind of grassy note. It's almost a little bit German and noble. Could there be a little bit of, like, you know, Mandarin of Bavaria or something in here? That's really interesting actually. There's a wee bit of a kind of orangey hint to this one. Yeah, it strikes me as being, you know, there's a little bit of a, how do you say, there's a bit of an orangey citrusy note to it. There's maybe a little bit of a kind of lemony zest, to be honest, as well. So that would be maybe, you know, it could be mosaic, it could be Amarillo, you know, YET, Mandarin and Bavaria, like I said. There's quite a few different things that it could be for the orangey side of things. But yeah, mainly it's a sort of slightly orangey fruit that you're getting out of this one. I don't get so much in the way of tropical notes, maybe a light little bit of mango or something. It certainly doesn't have the strong kind of passion fruity notes and grapefruit that you might otherwise get. Yeah, that's kind of interesting actually. There could be a wee bit of Simcoe in this one, because the tropical fruits that you get out of this are very, very soft. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of Simcoe in this one, because there's just something from memory that makes me think it might be that, because you've just got those softer tropical notes. There's there's a little tiny bit of a kind of softer passion fruit, a little bit of mango, so Simcoe or Citra. It just comes across as a bit old school, and as I say, a bit of a sort of orangey, kind of more oily orange actually. So it's either Mosaic, which I think is more likely, or it could be a little bit of Amarillo, but it doesn't quite smell oily enough to be Amarillo, to be honest with you. But yeah, as I say, for a New Englander, this one, it smells remarkably like one of these new takes that there is on a West Coast IPA these days. You know, there's a lot of West Coast IPAs that are being called West Coast. They're nowhere near as bitter as the old school ones used to be, right enough. But this beer really reminds me of that actually, to be honest with you. The fruitiness that comes out of this one, it's not overly strong, and I don't know, I mean, I would probably think, if I was blind smelling this, I would maybe think that this was like a pale ale or something like that, or maybe because it does have a bit of fruitiness. I think I would probably guess that this was a pale ale rather than a kind of full blown IPA. I do find the aroma of this one quite mild, to be honest with you, which wasn't what I was expecting. But yeah, kind of nice biscuity malt base, a little bit like kind of the more modern takes on the West Coast IPA, and then a little bit of a kind of citrusy fruitiness, oranges, a little bit of a maybe lemony zest in there as well, and a few kind of softer tropical fruits in the background. So I have to say, the aroma of this one is pretty different to what I was expecting from this, I have to say. So yeah, but take a little bit of time and enjoy that aroma for yourself before you get stuck into it, because it is a little bit quirky compared to what you'd normally expect for the style. But let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. This one is the Civ, an IPA coming in at 6% ABV from Brygghus in Karlshamn in Blekinge, and Secret Sisters Brewing, who are based in Malmö here in Skåne, both breweries from Sweden of course. Let's get stuck in. Slanche, skål. Yeah, I mean, it strikes me, as you know, I kind of, it strikes me as a sort of decent enough pale and things. Yeah, there's not I don't see sediment in this one in the bottom of the can either. You can see it has got a little bit more hazy since we've poured the last of it in, but you know, not overly much. Yeah, I mean, it strikes me as a decent enough kind of IPA, this one, but I have to admit, I have to say, when it comes to the kind of marketing-y side of that, I would debate the New England thing, because first off, to me, it doesn't really taste oaty enough, and it's, you know, it's not hazy. I mean, you know, there will be IPAs in New England that aren't hazy, but you know, when you see a New England IPA, you do expect it to be kind of oaty and hazy, actually. So yeah, but this one, it really strikes me as being more like one of these kind of more modern takes on the it really strikes me as being more one of the more kind of modern takes on like a West Coast IPA. So it's got the New England kind of bitterness to it, but otherwise, you know, it just doesn't strike me as a New Englander, to be honest with you. But as as just an IPA in general, it is pretty decent, so I'd say that about it. But yeah, it's, you know, as a kind of drinkable IPA, this is good. The style thing, as I say, I think I would criticise the sort of marketing of the beer as a New England, but as a beer and the quality of the beer, which is the main thing, we can sit and debate styles all day if we really want to. You know, the quality of the beer is good, and that's what you want. I mean, Secret Sisters Brewing, I've heard good things. I've not actually tried any of their beers on tap, but I know their beers are available on tap around Malmö, so I need to keep an eye out for that. And Brygghus Neaton these days are a very capable brewery as well, and they've pulled off a nice IPA here. As I say, this one really though just strikes me as being like one of these more kind of modern takes on the West Coast IPA rather than a New England. I would stick with that statement about this one. It might have a little bit of oatiness in it. But it's, you know, this, if you see a double dry hop New England, you expect a big hazy thing to come out of the can, not really something that looks like this or tastes like this, to be quite frank. But yeah, as I say, as a regular sort of IPA, it is pretty nice. So yeah, let's try and kind of break down the flavour of this one a little bit then and see how we get on. So as you can see, you know, as you open up the flavour of this beer, you'll get that nice kind of pale malty quality. That will blanket the middle of the tongue. So you get that nice kind of bready base there in the middle of the palate. As you go towards the back of the palate, it's a little bit more sort of grainy and kind of brown bready. You do get a little bit more of the kind of grainy dryness coming out of the beer. And as you progress further into the aftertaste as well, you can feel there is a bit of that McVitie's digestive kind of biscuity quality in the very centre of your palate. And if you go to the very, very centre, kind of dead centre, if you like, you will get a wee bit of a kind of sweeter caramelly note coming out of this one. But yeah, it definitely, as you move further out from that very centre of your palate, it does get a little bit more kind of grainy and like McVitie's digestive biscuit actually, and then underneath that of course you've got the kind of pale malty quality. As you go towards the back of the palate, there's something that tells me there might be a little touch of like a kind of Pilsner malt or something like that, or Carapils maybe in this one. There's just something about the flavour that's really giving me that, because you do get that little bit more kind of crisp quality in the sort of centre of the back third of your tongue actually. But yeah, this one is just far more like a West Coast IPA on the malty side of things. Even if you go to the kind of front of that middle third of your tongue, it doesn't really have that kind of oaty creaminess and smoothness that you would expect of the New Englander, to be honest with you. So I would say that, and it actually just says on the side here it just contains barley malt, corn malt, and Veta malt. So yeah, it doesn't have oats in it. And I think you really have to have, you either have to have a very high wheat content, or you have to have, either that you have to have wheat and oats for it to be a New England IPA. So as I say, the marketing on this one I don't think is quite right, but as a kind of modern take on a West Coast IPA, it's pretty decent, to be honest. So yeah, malt base on this one, as I say, it develops quite nicely. Light and bready, it's got a good level of crispness to it, which is what you want from an IPA these days. You want it to be a little bit crisper and you want it to be drinkable, especially for the summer months. But yeah, I like how that malt base goes together. Back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of just a little touch of earthiness there. I do think from the level of earthiness you get in this, there is a bit of mosaic in here, because mosaic will give you that darker earthiness. As you move further forward, the earthiness creeps forward a little bit, and then you reach a nice, you get a little bit of that out of it. Then as you reach the front kind of corners of the palate, you've got some nice floral aromaticity to the beer. Then around the very front curve of the palate, it's just a little bit lighter and more grassy, I have to say, and I do like how that kind of comes out of it. It does have a little bit of the floral bite to it. Of course, it's nowhere near as bitter and things as you might expect of one of the old school West Coast IPAs. I think this one is the kind of typical 30 or 40 IBUs that you're expecting in IPAs these days. Of course, the people that have got into craft beer a little bit later than I would have back in 2012, 2013 kind of thing, they expect a lower bitterness from IPAs these days. And this beer does reflect that, in fairness. But yeah, around the very front curve of the palate, a little bit lighter and grassy, like I say, and then the front third of your tongue, that's where you get that nice oily bubble, where the juicy fruity ester starts to push its way out of the beer. So if you go towards the back of that part of the palate, you do get a little bit of a kind of darker, more passion fruity note. This one, I do think there might be a wee bit of Simcoe to this one, and could be a little bit of Citra, in fairness, as well. So you do get a little bit of that darker, more tropical fruit note there. As you come further forward from that, you might get a little touch of mango there, but as you reach the kind of front half of that front third of your tongue, if you like, the front sixth of your tongue, I guess you could say, you do get a wee bit more of a kind of orangey thing. I'm pretty sure that Mosaic is one of the hops in this one because of that orangey note and the way the earthiness comes out. Those are the two distinct things for me, and I think, you know, I think they're, I've got a few, there's just something about old school about this that makes me think it might be Citra Simcoe Mosaic. There's just something about that. It could be other things, of course, when they're saying that it's a special blend. I don't know if that would maybe refer to when the hops are added and exactly what quantities and things like that, or whether it is the actual, you know, whether it is the, how do you say, the, what actual hops it is. So yeah, not quite sure about that, but yeah, I think there is just something about old school, as I say, a bit of orange, bit of a tropical fruit towards the back of the palate, and as you kind of focus on the very kind of front edge of the tongue, there is a bit of a kind of citrusy, zesty note to it as well. There could be a wee bit of centennial or something in there as well. But yeah, I like how the flavours go together on this one. It's a nice, as I say, it's quite a nice drinkable and crisp take on the IPA, to be honest with you. As I say, my only issue with this one is it's not the style that that is marketed as. I don't think there's any way you can argue that this is a New England IPA. This one should just be an IPA, or they should say it's a West Coast IPA, because it is far more like one of these modern takes on the West Coast IPA than it is a New England IPA. So yeah, and even as a West Coast IPA, it's I've said this when the other beers as well, it's the bitterness and things that it does not match what a West Coast IPA was back in the day. But yeah, as a straight up IPA, I like this one. I wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. Say, just change the marketing. That's the one thing that's getting me about this one. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say, you know, fairly mid-bodied beer. The carbonation has a good bit of crispness to it, but at the same time it smoothens the beer out. Overall, I'd say that this one is, you know, it's got a little bit of oiliness to it. It's got, it does have a little bit of wetness. I'd say it's not the most oily and thick beer that you've got. It's kind of medium, and that's got a little bit of slickness to it, in fairness. But yeah, it has, again, the sort of level of oiliness you get with this is more reminiscent of a West Coast IPA, because obviously a New England one is going to be quite creamy and quite thick and things like that. So yeah, this one is more reminiscent of a kind of West Coaster, to be honest with you. In terms of the hoppy bitterness, I think we're talking about, you know, somewhere between 30 and 40 IBUs. It's your fairly standard bitterness for the New England IPAs these days, and of course the new takes on the West Coast IPAs tend to be about that as well. So I think there's something makes me want to say 40 IBUs with this one. Malt base has a level of crispness to it, as I say, a little bit of breadiness underneath, and there is a wee touch of sweetness in the middle of the palate too, and the fruitiness just has a little bit of a kind of oily character, I think, as well. But I mean, overall, it's a very, very you know, it'd be a very nice take on the West Coast IPA. My only issue is if it's a New Englander, it should be wheaty, it should be hazy, and it should just be a lot creamier than it is. So I've got a problem with the marketing in this one, but I've not got any issue with the beer itself. The beer itself is quite nice. It just needs to be marketed as a more West Coast IPA, to be honest with you. So yeah, they've pulled off a solid beer, this one. And you know, Brygghus Niton are building a reputation for themselves these days. Secret Sisters, I have heard good things about. So I'd quite like to have one of their own beers that's only their beer and do a proper review like that for you on the channel. But I think there's not been any released through Systembolaget yet, so maybe I need to be cheeky and ask them to give me for them to give me like a bottle or two of their beer that I can review. So yeah, we'll see about that. But yeah, definitely it's been cool to feature Secret Sisters Brewing on the channel, and it's always nice to go back to Brygghus Niton as well. I do need to see what else is available from those guys through the Systembolaget order system as well. But let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Siv, a 6.0% IPA. They say it's a New Englander, a bit more like a West Coast, in my opinion. One of the more modern takes on the West Coast, lower bitterness and more biscuity than caramelly, to be honest. I would say that about this one, but as an IPA, I think it's pretty nice, this one. That's a nice, quite sessionable, drinkable IPA, I have to say. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Secret Sisters Brewing and from Brygghus Niton. We will no doubt return to these breweries at some point in the near future. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. Until the next time, Slanja just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Check out my social media, check out both of these breweries, and you will see them at some point in the future. The Civ IPA at 6% ABV, released as part of the June lot of the local Småska League assortment from Brygghus in Karlshamn in Blekinge, and Secret Sisters Brewing, one of the minus one brewing collective breweries in Malmö here in Skåne in the south of the country. Slanja, skål, catch you guys very soon. Cheers.